What's up, everybody? The UFC feels like it is starting to heat up again. It feels like we've been in a little bit of this lull, right? There hasn't been a ton of momentum ever since they took that long break, and then they kind of came back, and it's been like, to me, right? I haven't been super excited about the UFC, and I feel like a lot of that has been, it just feels flat, man. It feels flat, and we've been getting a ton of fight announcements. We're going to discuss a lot of those fights in this video, at least the new ones that were announced. I've already talked about quite a few of these fights in different videos on here, but I really want to talk about the schedule and kind of give my thoughts on it a little bit in this video briefly, but mainly I want to focus on these fights, right? Because they were recently announced, right? Renato Moicano versus Chris Duncan is going to be main eventing in Apex Fight Night, and then we got Joshua Van versus Tatsuro Taira, which I believe is the co-main event of UFC 327. Still waiting on what the headliner is going to be. Kind of odd that they announced that as the co-main event. You know, they cut a promo that they're heading to, Miami, and every time the UFC goes to Miami, the cards are always bangers. So I have no doubt that the main event is going to be a heater. And then Gilbert Burns versus Mike Malott. Like, out of all the fights that have been announced, this one to me, it just, I'm sorry, no excitement. No excitement whatsoever. And the fact that that is a main event of a fight night with a crowd is crazy. Craziness. And then Joaquin Buckley versus Brady is an amazing fight. That is an amazing matchup. It's in the Apex. That should be in an arena where there are a ton of fans. And Malott versus Burns, that feels like an Apex main event type of fight at the end of the day. But to be honest, man, I feel like a lot of these fights are actually really good. The only one that I got a lot of complaints about is Burns versus Malott, which we'll get to that whenever we talk about that matchup. But this is what we're looking at here. Over the next couple months, right? Coming up this weekend, we got Reanto versus Kavanaugh. I recently dropped my full card breakdown and prediction video for that. And then coming up, we got Oliveira versus Oliveira 2. I mean, that's a banger, man. BMF belt on the line, legends only. I love the matchup. The rematch that's kind of been long overdue. I'm super excited for that fight. It's going to be a banger. And then Emmett versus Kevin Vallejos. I mean, look, man, Kevin Vallejos, you talk about one of the hottest prospects in the UFC right now, that's got to be Vallejos, coming off of a crazy knockout over Giga Chikadze. I'm pretty sure he's the first person to finish Giga. That is unbelievably impressive to do that. And he's kind of looking like an Ilia Topuria-esque kind of fighter. His boxing's really good. He's got the knockout power. He's well-rounded, and he has been rattling off these wins. This is a big opportunity for him against Josh Emmett. I think he goes out there and gets the KO, and then Movsar Evloev versus Lerone Murphy. To me, that's got to be the number one contender fight. But of course, we do not have official confirmation from the UFC that the winner of that fight is actually going to fight Volk next for the belt. And I've been telling you guys a mile away, I'm sure a lot of you out there can smell the BS as well. My spidey senses are tingling, saying that the winner of Evloev and Murphy is probably not getting the next title shot, unless it's something impressive, which is to a degree why I think that Evloev and Murphy, they're going to come out and look better than they ever have in their career, because they're going to be like, hey, man, in order to get that title shot and kind of stamp my name into that conversation, I'm going to have to go out there and put on an impressive performance. I'm going to have to go out there and put on an impressive performance. And I think the UFC is looking for a finish in that fight, because if they don't finish it, even if it's a dominant win for Movsar or Lerone, they're going to be like, oh, well, we didn't finish anybody. So I could just see it coming a mile away. But to me, the winner of that fight should absolutely be fighting Volk next. It would be a fresh matchup. I think Movsar is going to get the job done. Adesanya Pyfer, great main event. Risky fight for Izzy. Big step up for Joe Pyfer. Pyfer's been putting in some work. He's very, very dangerous. My early lean is Adesanya, though, man. Adesanya is one of the best strikers. I know he's a little bit older, but, if Joe Pyfer doesn't land that KO shot, Adesanya is not the easiest guy to take down. So I think that that's a very intriguing main event. So now let's get into the fights that have recently been announced, because there's also been multiple other fights recently announced. So I'm glad I waited to make this video for UFC 327. I'll show you some of those when we get there, but we're going to go right in order according to the date. So first up, we got Renato Moicano versus Chris Duncan. This is a main event in today's game in the UFC. And listen, people complain about the Apex events a ton. And look, I get it. Obviously, I would rather them be in an arena for a fight night or a numbered event, like how there's a giant crowd. And I understand all that. They've expanded the Apex. There's still people in there. And I don't necessarily mind an Apex every now and then, but it's when they start rattling off way too many Apex events where I'm like, okay, what are we doing, man? What are we doing? This is the UFC. This is the NFL, the NBA, the NHL of fighting, at least when it comes to MMA. Come on, man. We could do better than that. It just feels like it's this comfy, cozy, lazy type of thing. But at the end of the day, I've said it and I will keep saying it. we can rip on the Apex and the way that they build out these cards for it, and it doesn't have a ton of star power, whatever you want to say. They usually end up being some of the most action-packed cards of the entire year. That's why I kind of stopped complaining about them, because I'm like, okay, the matchmaking's actually, the matchmaking in a way is actually even better on the Apex cards than what it is on the number ones. So casual, man, casual. Well, seriously, they are. They are fake hardcore, right? I can hear it now, but seriously, they are. You mean to tell me that Mario Bautista versus Vinny Oliveira card was not loaded with amazing matchups for like the hardcores, man? Like they had good fights on there. So I feel like this is, so I kind of give the Apex Fight Nights a little bit of slack, but I get it. Of course, I would rather them be in arenas, but this is what we got to deal with. So I don't want to sit up here and just continue to complain about the Apex. But the bottom line is this is a good fight. It's a good fight. And today, today's game, this is a main event, and it's worthy, I guess, for the standards of the UFC Apex cards. This is a main event. And to be honest, this is a really good fight. Now, my early prediction, I think Moicano gets it done. Now, here's my problem with Renato is what Moicano can we expect? Is this a guy that's just showing up for a paycheck now? Right, because he goes out there and obviously was supposed to fight Dariush and then, Armin, the whole situation where he had to pull out against Islam. So then they throw Moicano in there. And that was a joke. At least they got to keep Islam on the card. But, Moicano had no chance. You had people out there, well, Moicano's jiu-jitsu and his striking's not that bad. Zero chance against Islam. So he gets destroyed. No harm, no foul. That's the best fighter in the sport. In my opinion, the best of all time. Okay. Then you go out there and get dominated by Benny Dariush. And I picked Dariush to win that fight. And people, I feel like, have a false idea of what the heck went on in that Dariush fight. It was not close. Moicano landed a nice right hand that hurt Dariush. We know that Dariush is as chinny as it gets nowadays, man. He's over the hill at this point. And I hate to say that because I like Benny a lot. And what you talk about a guy that royally got screwed over. The fact that Dariush never fought for the title when he was on that crazy win streak is just insane. And now it feels like he's just, the downfall of his career. He keeps getting knocked out. But he dominated Moicano outside of getting dropped in that first round, which ended up kind of stealing the round, I think, from Moicano in round 1. Dariush dominated him in the grappling in rounds 2 and 3. And it's like, how does Moicano go out there and destroy Benoit Saint-Denis and get a stoppage? That performance is crazy. And that's what Moicano is capable of. But I've been saying for a while, man, that Renato is overrated. He is. But what this comes down to for me is Chris Duncan, he's been on fire since coming into the UFC. He's stopping a lot of his opponents. Right, he's got a nasty submission game. Look at the Balagioki fight, the Jordan Vucenic fight. But I thought the Jordan Vucenic win was going to age really well because I was high on Vucenic. I liked him outside the UFC, comes in, and things didn't look very good. Right, but since, he had the war with Mateusz Rąbecki, got rid of Terrence McKinney pretty early in that fight, which we knew that was a car wreck waiting to happen and someone was going to get finished. And I picked Duncan to win that fight. But the reality is both of these guys have bad defense. Their striking is not particularly good. They're good on the ground. I'm pretty sure, aren't these guys training partners? So there's some familiarity there. That's a hard word to say. But these guys are familiar with each other. And at least I think, right, unless I'm mistaken there. But to me, I lean Moicano. I think he gets it done. 5 rounds to work with. He's got all the experience in the world. He's hittable, but so is Duncan. And to me, this comes down to the fact that I know Moicano's jiu-jitsu is really good and his grappling is good. When he shows up and Moicano is on, I think he easily beats Chris Duncan. After the first round, it'll be kind of hairy, but then he'll start to take over, and I think we'll end up winning the fight. And whoa, look what happened against Rąbecki. But again, Rąbecki swings these big clobbering, punches, and he's more of a striker. Moicano can mix it up pretty well. Now, I will say Duncan early on, he could catch Moicano, right? Especially if Moicano looks to grapple, and, Duncan's got that nasty guillotine, but I'm sure Moicano is going to be ready for it. So to me, I'm going to take the more technical guy on the feet in Moicano, a guy that's got the experience advantage. He's been in 5-rounders before. He's been in the big spotlight, not that being in the Apex is a giant spotlight, but you get what I mean. And this is new for Duncan. But if there's ever a guy that can go out here and, just end up running over Moicano at this point in his career, it would be Duncan. He's on a hot streak right now. So my early prediction, I'll say Moicano. I'll say decision. I think it's a good back and forth. I think Duncan has moments. Maybe Duncan gets tired. We'll have to see the cardio in a 25-minute fight, but I lean towards Moicano. He's a little bit more technical on the feet, and I feel like he cancels out what Duncan does pretty well. But I think on the feet, while Moicano is more technical, Duncan is more dangerous because he's got the power. So for me, the Cavalry's kind of still out on how good is Chris Duncan because he's gotten some good wins. It's been impressive. But, I mean, Terrence McKinney, it's either McKinney finishes you or you finish him in the first round, and then the other guys, those wins they're not bad, but I don't feel like they've aged quite like we thought. Moicano, who knows where he is at? Is he just showing up for paychecks at this point? But for me, early lean, I'm going to say Moicano. I think he kind of cancels out what Duncan does well. I think it's a close fight, and I think it's a scrap, man. I think it's a fun fight. Here we go. Joshua Van versus Tatsuro Taira. It's tough, man, because you guys know I'm a massive Alexandre Pantoja fan. And I picked Pantoja to beat Joshua Van, and that was a fluke win. Let's call it what it was, man. I love Joshua Van, by the way. I've picked him in every fight except for the Pantoja fight. And sure, he proved me wrong, I guess, because he's the champion, but it was a fluke win. It's a fluke win. In my opinion, it doesn't really count, but yet it does count. But hopefully we get to see that fight at some point. And Pantoja should walk back into a title fight whenever he is healthy and ready to go. So hopefully the UFC does right by Pantoja, because to me, he's the greatest flyweight of all time. He's been active. He's willing to fight anybody. Pantoja should walk back into a title shot. That said, I'm really happy that the UFC is booking this fight right now, because clearly Pantoja, from them booking this, he's not ready to go, which a lot of us anticipated given the injury in that Van fight. I got to say, the disrespect towards Joshua Van, though, is absolutely insane. And one of the guys, since Van came into the UFC, I've been one of these people on the Joshua Van hype train. I've been shouting his name from the rooftop, saying this dude's got some of the best boxing in the UFC. And I said that when he fought Ray Saruya, people were like, why did they book that fight? It doesn't make any sense. That was a fight that was going to massively benefit Joshua Van in the long run. The kid is so young in the game, man. To see what he has accomplished so far in his career, it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible, and he's got so many years ahead in this game, man, and he's already the world champion. That Ray Saruya fight, I think, is something that is really going to help him moving forward, and this is the perfect example. It was the fact that while Ray Saruya doesn't really have, his striking is zero, you knew that he was going to come out, he's a solid grappler, and he was literally just going to try to grapple Joshua Van for 15 minutes. So you had to go through an entire camp preparing for someone to literally do nothing but try to grapple you. Well, now you run into a guy in Tatsuro Taira who is, looking like a serious problem. Outside of the Brandon Royval loss, which, by the way, people want to argue that Taira won the fight. Brandon Royval clearly won that fight. People are disrespecting Joshua Van. Now they're like, Taira's going to destroy him. And isn't Taira a big favorite? I couldn't believe that, man. I think that Joshua Van boxes up Tatsuro Taira. I think he boxes him up, man. Look what Joshua Van did on short notice against Brandon Royval. Stood in the pocket, went toe-to-toe with him, and was stinging up Brandon Royval. Boxing him up, man. He's a much better striker than Tatsuro. I know Tatsuro's getting better on the feet. His striking's looking a little bit better, and he still is kind of dangerous on the feet. So you do have to be careful of Taira. I feel like people kind of really disrespect his striking. It's gotten better. It's definitely gotten better, but it is not nearly as good as Joshua Van. But whenever you have a takedown threat and a dangerous submission threat like Taira, that can kind of, in a way, even out the playing field a little bit more. Not necessarily even it out on the field, but when there's a gap where I think Van is way better than Taira on the feet, and it's like this, if you got that grappling threat, it kind of gets a little bit closer. So I think that that's something to consider coming into this fight, but I think Joshua Van wins. I think he wins this fight, and I think he stops Tatsuro Taira in the mid to later rounds, man. I'll say like a round 4 TKO or something. Listen, Joshua Van's takedown defense is really, really good. That's one of the good things we've seen from Van in his career is those guys at his camp, like you look at his teammate Alden Correa, the way that they see the shots coming, they anticipate shots incredibly well. They have very good eyesight. They have very good movement for seeing when a fighter is going to try to level change. He knows Taira's going to look to grapple. That's Taira's route to victory in this fight, is to take Van down, get to the back, and try to find some sort of submission. And if Taira can do that, he can definitely win the fight. I'm not counting out Taira, but there are so many people that are disrespecting Van, and I feel like a lot of that is because of the fluke win over Alexandre Pantoja. But it's not Van's fault. It's not Joshua Van's fault. He stepped in the octagon, and unfortunately that happened. But the reality is he's the champion. And I'm happy for Josh Van, man, because this is a guy realizing his dream. He's a super fun fighter to watch. His boxing is crisp. It's clean. And he has got super underrated takedown defense. And his grappling overall. Look at the Edgar Chairez fight. That wins age well because I think Edgar Chairez is really good. And he was able to take him down and control him. And I think Van took that fight on short notice. So to me, people are overlooking Josh Van in this fight. All because, Tatsuro Taira, the grappler. It's like, guys, we're starting to see a little bit of a changing of the guard where not all the time, but we're seeing a lot more where it used to be the grappler's almost a shoe-in to beat the striker. These strikers nowadays are preparing to be taken down. They're not dumb. They're not like, I had no idea that he was going to try to take me down. Like, they are literally preparing, every single fight they're going through camps knowing that people are going to try to want to take them down. So to me, Van's been preparing for this moment. I'm glad the UFC has went ahead and booked this fight because also how rare is it that we get two young dudes in the primes of their careers fighting for a world title? I feel like we got to enjoy this, man. Whether you're picking Van, you're picking Taira, whether you're a bigger fan of one guy than the other, sit back and be an actual fan of this fight because to me, this is something that is so rare in the UFC now. When do we ever see two guys in the absolute primes of their career? And actually, I think that these guys are, they're kind of in their primes, but they're only going to get better from here. And I feel like this will not be the last time that they fight. This is a big-time fight, man. Two young savages. Both guys are really good. They have different skill sets. I love this fight. It's a great matchup. And it's a massive co-main event. So we'll see what the headliner is. But this is an amazing fight, man. But early prediction, I think Joshua Van gets it done. I think he sprawls and brawls. Defends the takedowns. Even if he gets taken down, he's a scrambly little rascal dog. He'll work back to his feet. He'll shuck off Taira, put him up against the fence, pressure him, get into that boxing range, and let his hands go. And I think that Van has a massive advantage there. And his takedown defense is very, very underrated. Taira's good, though. If he could get to the back, if he can control Van on the floor, then that'll be Taira's fight. But to me, don't forget about what happened in that Brandon Royval fight. It's like people got fishbowl memory, and they forget exactly how it went down. So again, Van tagged up Brandon Royval in what was an amazing fight to where Van was still getting hit. Brandon Royval is a better striker than Tatsuro Taira. So you saw how Taira was struggling when he could not get the grappling going against Brandon Royval. If Van stops the takedowns, keeps it on the feet, Josh Van's fight all day long. These are some of the other fights that were added to 327, right? You got Dom Reyes versus Johnny Walker. Maybe the first double KO. Maybe we get a double knockout here, man. Reyes and Walker tag each other at the same time and knock each other out, man. I mean, the battle of two chinny guys that are very chaotic. Well, at least Johnny Walker's chaotic. Dominic Reyes, more of a sniper, more precise, more calculated, but the chin is definitely an issue. It's definitely an issue, and the chin is also an issue for Johnny Walker. And look, the bottom line is Johnny Walker gets himself out of position. He's going to throw a bunch of kicks, try to sit at range. I don't think he's really going to try to grapple. I know he shot that he tried to pull that Hamzat against Zhang Min Yang, right? And dove at the legs, which is actually kind of smart to kind of wear on Zhang a little bit, kind of drag it out. It actually was kind of a smart strategy by Johnny Walker. I don't think he meant to end up underneath Zhang like that. That was funny. I don't think that that's the way he wanted that to go, but it ended up working out. He just, I think, was like, I just need to drag this fight out. You're not going to be able to take down Reyes, though. Reyes has really, really good takedown defense. He's a sniper, and I think Johnny Walker leaves too many openings to where if he overextends, he's getting knocked out by Dominic Reyes. Early lean, I'll say Dom Reyes by KO. And then Azamat Murzakanov versus Paulo Costa. This is a fight where I got to believe it. I got to see it before I believe it. Because this is, a very random book. I mean, it's an exciting fight. I mean, Paulo Costa has been at middleweight for forever, right? He's been wildly inactive. Right, he had the Whitaker fight, quick turnaround against Strickland. That was by far the quickest turnaround of his career. And I'm like, oh, we're going to finally get an active Paulo Costa? Nope. Went into hiding, hibernated for a while, came back, fought Roman Kopylov, looked really good. You know, Costa's fast. People look at him as a knockout artist because of the way he's built, but he really isn't. He's more of a volume-based guy, but he's fast, he's speedy. But Azamat Murzakanov is a serious problem, man. He literally KO'd Alexander Rakic with a jab. And Rakic is a massive light heavyweight with nasty kicks, pretty good movement. You know, I feel like Murzakanov is probably knocking out Paulo Costa. And I know Costa's really durable. The only time he's been KO'd, I think, was the Izzy fight, right? So, again, like Murzakanov, he's kind of there to be hit, but he's very fast. He's fast for a light heavyweight. Costa will be coming up with the lighter man skill, but I don't know that that's necessarily going to be too much on display. Because you remember when Costa fought Vettori? And he was like going to miss weight or whatever, and they ended up doing it at 205. Costa looks sluggish, and cardio tends to be an issue for Costa, especially when he has the extra weight on. I don't know, man. I think Murzakonov's knocking him out. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if this fight doesn't end up happening. But you never know, man. Costa's pretty good on the feet. He's fast. He's got good kicks. But I think Murzakanov, man, he's got some serious power. He moves well. I think he knocks out Paulo Costa. Curtis Blaydes and Josh Huckett. The UFC says we've seen enough of Curtis Blaydes at the top of the division. We need new life in the heavyweight division because the heavyweight division's pathetic. It's absolutely pathetic. You got Aspinall gone. I mean, Volkov, Pavlovich, Waldo Cortez, and that's pretty much it. It's kind of the revolving door at heavyweight to where it's so stale, it's stagnant, it's pathetic. And people are like, oh, talk about Dana White privilege for Josh Huckett. Rizvan Kuniev, his first fight in the UFC was Curtis Blaydes. The UFC is literally anyone that has a slight amount of hype, they're giving them a massive opportunity in the heavyweight division. Like this, look at Ante D'Elia. Walked into the UFC, and I think what was his first fight? Marcin Tybura. Right, so Hawkett's at least put in some work. He's had a couple fights. He's been impressive. He was impressive on DWCS. He's been finishing people. His wrestling's good. His ground and pound's good. His striking's getting better. Curtis Blaydes is no easy out, man. And the UFC's like, we're tired of Blaydes being at the top. We're tired of him being at the top. And I thought it was a robbery win over Rizvan Kuniev. Right? But Curtis Blaydes is no gimme. He's no layup. Now, I do favor Josh Hawkett to get a stoppage in this fight because I think if Blaydes' route to, grapple, if things get dicey, he's not going to be able to take down Josh Hawkett. So I think that Josh Hawkett can neutralize the grappling of Blaydes on the feet. While Blaydes is kind of technical, he's very predictable. He's not the most comfortable guy on the feet. I think he'll land some shots. He's got good straight, boxing, but Josh Hawkett's looking like a problem, man. I think he goes right after Blaydes, puts him up against the fence, is able to land some shots, and able to get him out of there, man. Josh Hawkett, he's kind of leaning into the gimmick stuff, trying to be a cornball, but at the end of the day, you're marketing yourself. People are going to like you. People are going to dislike you. At least he's trying, I guess, is I guess what we can take from that because of how pathetic the heavyweight division is. Don't say that this is Dana White privilege. This is literally the UFC desperate for any possible life in the heavyweight division. And I like when we got a guy that's looked impressive and they throw him into the shark tank to see if he can swim and survive and possibly prevail. I love the matchup. I think Hawkett gets it done. Kevin Holland versus Randy Brown's an interesting fight. I probably lean Randy Brown. I haven't liked Kevin Holland's recent performances, and Kevin Holland's the type of guy that could show up and look like he could possibly be a contender in the weight class, and then other times he shows up and looks like he shouldn't be in the UFC. So I don't know about picking Kevin Holland in this fight. Two rangy strikers. It's going to be a fun fight, but I'm going to side with Randy Brown, man. I know Randy Brown lost to Gabriel Bonfim, but Bonfim, I think, destroys Kevin Holland. So to me, Randy Brown, he's fast. He's slick, and I've said this before, when Randy is on, man, he's one of the more difficult puzzles on the feet in the welterweight division. So I like this matchup. This is a big bounce-back opportunity for Randy Brown. I think he ends up beating Kevin Holland. He might even knock him out, man. Kevin Holland, for a guy that was known for being really durable, we've seen him in the D-Rod, out of all people. And I like D-Rod, but D-Rod looked out of shape. He looked slow, looked lethargic, and he was beating up on Kevin Holland. And Randy Brown's a sniper. He's fast. He's sharp. I lean towards Randy Brown, and I think he might be the first. I don't think Kevin Holland's been KO'd. Kevin Holland's been dropped. It feels like his chin's kind of letting up a little bit. I don't know. Maybe we go to a fun kind of decision, but I got to think about that, man. Randy Brown's really dangerous, but I lean Brown. Then we got the fight you all have been waiting for, the highly anticipated Suarez versus Lupi Godinez. I don't know. Tatiana Suarez striking is awful. She's super overrated. She barely won. I think it was her last fight against Amanda Lemos. She basically did nothing in that fight. I picked her to win, but it was atrocious. Got destroyed by Zhang Weili. I picked Weili to beat the brakes off of her. She's overrated, overhyped. But the problem is Lupi Godinez, is she going to be able to stop the takedowns? I feel like she's probably going to get held down on the ground. But if she can keep it on the feet, she'll outstrike Suarez. It's kind of just literally, can she stop the grappling of Suarez? And if she can, she'll outscore her. And if she can't, she's just going to get held down on the ground and dominated. Cub Swanson versus Nate Landwehr is a banger. Certified banger, OG type of fight. Two guys that have been around for a while, especially Cub Swanson. OG, I think Cub's a legend at this point. I think Cub Swanson knocks out Nate Landwehr. Nate Landwehr, to me, is a guy that was known for his durability. He's always in a fun fight. You can always count on that, but he is way too hittable, man. And I know Cub holds his hands low. He's a little bit older, but I think Cub Swanson ends up knocking out Nate Landwehr. I think that this is going to be like a fight of the night potential candidate. I think it's a banger, man, but I side with Cub Swanson. I think he knocks out Nate Landwehr. I think he's better everywhere. And then Kyle Daukaus versus Vicente Luque. You talk about Kyle Daukaus, man, a guy that was in the UFC, him and his brother. Things just weren't particularly good. Goes and racks up a bunch of wins, comes back into the UFC on short notice, I think it was against Michel Pereira, and destroyed him. That was very impressive. I know Michel Pereira has really fallen off, but that was impressive, man. It was very, very impressive. And then Daukaus goes out there and steamrolls over GM3, who I know is washed up as well, but still, Daukaus is looking good. He's looking good. He's big for the weight class. And again, wait a minute, this is a middleweight. Wow. That took me a second there because Luque's been at welterweight, so that's interesting. So Luque might have, a little bit of the speed advantage coming up, but I don't like this fight for Luque at all. I think it's an interesting fight because Luque's ground game is good, but he doesn't have good head movement. The striking's okay. I think Daukaus has made a lot of improvements on the feet. I think Daukaus finishes him. I think he clips him on the feet and ends up subbing Vicente Luque. I think Vicente, a guy that at one point, I thought was, maybe he was definitely a future possible champion. Vicente had been at the top of welterweight for so long, and to see kind of how he's fallen off, man, he's not the same guy. I think Daukaus runs him over. That'd be a nice name to add to the resume, but I don't like Vicente at middleweight whatsoever, man. I feel like he's just kind of, what's he doing? He's not making a run at middleweight. I don't think, at least. Maybe, I don't know, go up a weight class, maybe things get a little better. I don't see it. Daukaus is big. He's physical. I don't like this fight, man, whatsoever. And Daukaus kind of reminds me a little bit of RDR with the frame, not the goofy-ass striking and stuff, but kind of reminds me of RDR a little bit with the range, the lanky build. Daukaus looks like he might be a little bit of a problem on the rise at middleweight, man. He seems like a different dude since coming back into the UFC. I don't like this fight for Luque whatsoever. Gilbert Burns versus Mike Malott. This isn't a main event. It's just not a main event. Even in the Apex, even though it's the Apex, I would prefer Moicano versus Duncan over this fight as like a main event. This shouldn't be a main event, but we all know what this is. Gilbert Burns is very much out of his prime. He's not the same guy whatsoever. And it's tough to see. Now, granted, Burns has been in there with the most dangerous guys when it comes to the striking in the weight class. He has literally fought, and especially with the grappling. Sean Brady, Michael Morales, JDM, like he's fighting savages, man. And to me, Mike Malott is not a savage whatsoever. Mike Malott at one point on the rise, people were overrating the heck out of this guy. Oh, he's the face of Canada MMA, and he's the next big guy. They've been looking for that fighter since GSP retired, and I understand that Canada is desperate. Mike Malott is not that guy. He should absolutely win this fight, and I'm picking him to stop Gilbert Burns probably in round 2 or 3. He'll find some sort of shot. The reality is Gilbert Burns is washed up, man. And I love Gilbert Burns. He's one of my favorites, man, and I really like him. He's an amazing person. I really like Gilbert Burns, and I would love to see him win this fight. And if there's ever a guy to be literally spoon-fed a catered matchup in Canada to fumble it all, Mike Malott would be the guy. Mike Maflop. I call him Mike Maflop, man, and Mike Malott reminds me of Daniel Jones in the NFL. He reminds me of when people talk about these quarterbacks, the way people felt about Sam Darnold for a while, where they're like, man, just wait until the big moment, and he'll find a way to screw it up. He'll find a way to turn the ball over. Right? That's not Sam Darnold anymore, but Daniel Jones is still like that. The bottom line is those types of quarterbacks that people talk about, that is Mike Malott. If you give Mike Malott too many opportunities and you put him in these big spotlights and you keep rolling the dice with him, this guy to me is someone that will fumble. He just will. He will make a bad decision and something will happen, and what can go wrong will go wrong with Mike Malott. The cavalry for me, I don't even know if that makes any sense. I realize I said that earlier. The cavalry is out for Mike Malott. I'm saying it in terms of I'm unsure on how good he is. He has the skills, but there's ever a guy to fumble the opportunity, it's Mike Malott. That's what I'm getting at. So early prediction, Mike Malott by finish, he should. But again, Gilbert Burns is a good grappler, but he's not the same guy. Not the same guy. Again, he's been losing to absolute killers. Mike Malott is not a killer whatsoever. And then if he wins this fight, people are going to try to prop him up and be like, the face of Canada MMA. He's not that guy, man. He just isn't that guy. And I like Mike Malott. Seems like a great dude. I'm just being honest. The skill, it's not there. It's not top of the food chain, especially in the welterweight division. His defense is not good. His striking is okay. His grappling is actually probably his best asset, which I don't know that that's really going to work out in this fight because we've seen how good Burns is against opposing grapplers. So to me, it cancels out. It plays out on the feet. I don't know that Burns at this point in his career, especially with the wrestling, is good enough to trouble Mike Malott. Burns is slowed down. Mike Malott will pick him apart from range, walk him into a shot, and be able to stop him. But stopping Gilbert Burns at this point, unfortunately, it really doesn't mean anything anymore. This is meant to be a layup for Mike Malott. Mike Maflop may strike once again in Canada. Yes, he bounced back nicely against Kevin Holland, but again, you can never count on Kevin Holland to show up. He low-blowed him multiple times, and don't forget when he was beating up on Neil Magny and gassed and got stopped in round number 3. And I know, put some respect on Uncle Neil, man. He's been around the block. He's been around for forever. He's an OG, and actually, Neil Magny's resume is actually really underrated. But still, you shouldn't lose to Neil Magny if you're this hyped-up guy like Mike Malott. So Mike Maflop may strike once again in Canada. I would not be surprised whatsoever, but I do like the person Mike Malott. I'm just saying, people hype this guy up like he's the next face of Canada MMA. At least that's what it was early. I feel like people have dialed that back. He's not that dude. He's still good, and I think he's good enough to beat Gilbert Burns at this particular moment. But Mike Malott, the further he climbs up the rankings in welterweight, I think it's going to be a disaster. I think he needs to grapple more. His ground game, I think, should be his bread and butter. On the feet, he's not bad, but his defense isn't good. Last but not least, if you guys are enjoying this video, if you could do me a favor, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and let me know what you're thinking below. I would greatly appreciate it. We got Sean Brady versus Joaquin Buckley. Early prediction, I think Joaquin Buckley is going to knock out Sean Brady in probably the second round. Listen, man, I really like Sean Brady. And I've been saying that he's got like a haunted house ground game. He's got an elite ground game if he could get the fight to the floor. His wrestling is really improved. He's very physically strong. You hear Paul Felder and the guys that train with Brady all the time talk about his physicality, how strong he is for this weight class. But the reality is if he cannot get a hold of his opposition, he is in a world of trouble. And that's why I picked Michael Morales to beat Sean Brady. Well, because Michael Morales is a my player, and I mean, he's just literally got all the attributes. He's an absolute, savage. But we saw in the Bilal Muhammad fight, if Sean Brady cannot get the grappling going, he is a sitting duck on the feet. He just is. And his striking's gotten better offensively, but defensively, it's not very good. And if you hit Sean Brady one clean time, he shuts down. He does. He does, man. We're starting to see that. And, Buckley, I understand that he's coming off of a fight against Kamaru Usman where I feel like people might be out on the Buckley hype train, but I was saying that Buckley he's a dark horse in this weight class. I still think he is. Just because you lose to Kamaru Usman, which Usman shocked a lot of people. A lot of us wrote off Usman in that fight because he's older, his knees are shot, right? And Buckley was riding all the hype. And, we've seen Buckley's a very explosive guy, right? He was at middleweight, cutting down to 170, kind of reinvented himself. I feel like Buckley is one of the guys to realize, okay, I really got a hole in my takedown defense. I need to improve some things. And I think Brady's going to have a hard time taking down Buckley in this fight. And Buckley kind of, has got that peekaboo style, explodes in the range, throwing these big power shots, these big hooks, these big uppercuts. He's got unpredictable kicks, kicking ability as well. Remember that crazy spinning back kick knockout? That was crazy. One of the craziest KOs of all time. And on Fight Island, that was nuts. Wasn't that over Kasanganai, who's now in the PFL, if I'm not mistaken? That was over, I think that's who that was. But either way, Buckley, dangerous. Outside of losing to Usman, like Usman would beat Sean Brady, in my opinion, pretty easily. I think he would. So even at this point in his career, Kamaru Usman, one of the all-time greats, in my opinion. So again, losing to him, no harm, no foul. Sean Brady, to me, if he could get Buckley down, will have a lot of success because if Brady can get into the half guard, he could posture up, start to just kind of constrict you, get the ground and pound going, start to work his jiu-jitsu game. He's got some of the best, especially in this division. His jiu-jitsu is next level, man. You saw that against Leon Edwards. Dominating Leon and subbing him like that was unbelievably impressive. But we're starting to realize that a Leon Edwards victory at this point, it's still good. I still think Leon Edwards is really, really good. But we're seeing Leon, to me, is not the same guy. But again, Leon's fighting he's consistently fighting the best guys in the world. So I don't want to discredit the win, but I think Joaquin Buckley would probably beat Leon Edwards at this point. So listen, Buckley, I think he's going to get better. The takedown defense will be on display. I think Brady's going to have a hard time taking him down. Buckley will sprawl and brawl, light him up on the feet. And when Sean Brady cannot get his grappling going and he's stuck on the feet, he's not very durable, doesn't take shots very well. I think Buckley will rip to the body, start to kind of take some of the wind out of the sail. Brady will start to question some things, and then Buckley will pin him up against the fence and let the boxing go and stop him. So great fight. But again, if Brady could take him down, I think it'll cause Buckley some problems. Because again, while Usman is a better wrestler, Brady has solid wrestling, but he has the submission threat. So that's quite a bit different for Buckley to prepare for. But on the feet, Brady's not dangerous whatsoever. He's gotten more technical. I like Sean Brady a lot. Love watching him fight. He's got a great ground game, but I don't know, man. I feel like people are starting to understand kind of the weakness of Sean Brady. Keep your range. Pick your shots well. Don't open up. Don't overextend. Don't shoot a takedown on Sean Brady like Leon Edwards. I don't know what Leon was thinking. I picked Brady to win the fight, so, I was happy Brady won, but I'm like, what is Leon doing? What's he doing? I don't expect Buckley to make that mistake. Buckley's very physically strong. He's very athletic, very explosive. I think he's a nightmare for Sean Brady, to be honest, at this point. So this is my thoughts, man. And I'm not sure how long this video is time-wise. Probably a little longer than what I wanted. But I'm excited, man. It feels like the UFC's back a little bit here. I'm not saying that these are amazing fights, but we're also, I think, going to get some massive fight news soon, right? We're hearing rumblings that Chimaev might be moving up to 205 to fight Yuri, which would be nuts. But to me, Chimaev should defend his belt. I'd rather see him and Sean Strickland. I think that That could be one of the biggest fights of all time. The build-up, they could do a face-to-face sit-down interview. I mean, they have all the marketing material that they need to make that a massive fight. So we'll see what happens. We got some big fights on the horizon. The White House card. Maybe McGregor's coming back. Sounds like they're probably going to feed him to somebody in the welterweight Shark Tank. So it'll be interesting to see what's going on, man. But I feel like the UFC is starting to pick up some steam a little bit here, kind of getting off to what I think is a little bit of a slower start. A lot of good fights. Don't love the Burns versus Malott one, but outside of that, I think a lot of these fights are pretty good, man. So we'll see what happens in the main event this weekend. But if you guys enjoyed this video, do me a favor, give it a like. Let me know what you think below. And if you could subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate it. I'll see you next time.